Is Annabel Sutherland the greatest cricketer the game has ever seen at the age of just 24? Now, if you were part of the Sutherland family, you would know that the only discussion that you have on the dinner table is either about golf or, more importantly, cricket. James Sutherland, who happens to be Annabel Sutherland's father, was part of Cricket Australia and played first-class cricket for a very, very long time. And then you have Will Sutherland, who has also played 2 ODIs for the Australian team, who's a brother. But it's not about her father or her brother, because in the cricketing family, you clearly know who is the best. Annabel Sutherland made her Women's Big Bash League debut at the age of just 15. At the time, she was the youngest ever women's cricketer to play the WBBL. Think about this, at the age of just 15, you're already in the limelight, you're already making headlines. So it wasn't a surprise that 4 years down the line, she saw herself making a debut for Australia. Now, unlike a lot of cricketers that we have covered on this channel, Annabel Sutherland is just 24 years old, and at this point, she hasn't really seen a downfall. If anything, by the end of the video, you will realize that she could possibly do anything that she wanted. But let's start off with the bowling even before we get to her batting, because when she started off playing the game, she predominantly started off as a bowler. You know what? Let's start off with the longest format, and that's the red ball format. In 7 games that she has played, she's picked up 19 wickets already, with an average of 23.2. Now, if this isn't impressive enough for you, since her debut, she has the second best average in the Australian team. Even in the ODI format, across 52 matches, she has picked up 63 wickets. But more impressively, she's done this with an economy of 4.6, just 4.6. In fact, since her debut, she's the 3rd highest wicket taker for the Australian team. But that's not even the most mind-boggling bit. She's already the 15th highest wicket taker in the ODI format for Australia ODI history. And amongst those 15 highest wicket takers that she's a part of, she has the 2nd best strike rate, a strike rate of 27. And she's only 24. That is insane. But her skill isn't just the fact that she can bowl with the new ball and in the middle phase and runs away in the most difficult part of the ODI format, and that's the death. Because she's one of the best death bowlers, not just within the Australian team, but also in the world. In the 2025 ODI World Cup that just went by, she had the 2nd highest wicket taker for a bowler to bowl in that last 10 overs of the ODI format. In 5 matches, she picked up 10 wickets with an economy of 6.7. Now, you might be wondering what makes her so different and why she's so good at the death, because she can even replicate this in the T20 format as well. Because amongst the Australian team since her debut in the T20 format, in the last 4 overs, she has the best economy rate amongst the top 10 wicket takers. And not just that, she's also the 4th highest wicket taker, which means at the death across formats, she's able to take wickets, she's able to contain runs, and mind you, this is just with the ball. But again, coming back to what makes her so special, this is it. There are 3 things that make Annabel Sutherland really special at the death. For starters, is the fact that not only does she have decent pace, but she also gets that extra bounce that can bamboozle a batter. But that decent bounce and pace is paired with a fantastic slower ball, a back of the hand slower ball, that if you're a batter, you could hardly notice it with her action. And this is what I'm talking about. This is the T20 World Cup 2024, where she gets her first wicket of the tournament. She bowls a seam-up delivery and then gets a wicket. But it's a 2nd wicket in the tournament that makes it even more impressive, because this is the ball right after where she bowls back of the hand. It's still a seam-up delivery, and the batter just doesn't know what to do because it's coming so much slower to her. Now, of course, that was in 2024, but this was also evident in the recently concluded 100 tournament that just got over in England, where for a bowler to have the maximum pace difference between the fastest and the slower delivery, Annabel Sutherland had the biggest pace difference. A 28-kilometer difference between a fastest and a slowest delivery is insane if you're a batter. Her fastest delivery in that tournament was 114, which is pretty quick for a fast bowler. But the slowest was 69 kilometers per hour. 69. To give you a little perspective, even Deepti Sharma was a spinner. Her average pace hovers around the 80s. And Annabel Sutherland's slow ball was 69. And like I said, all of this is just her with the ball, because wait for her with the bat. Now, as much as she started playing the game as a bowler, she soon, and her coaches around her, realized that she can also contribute a lot with the bat because of how technically sound she is. If you watch her bat, you will soon realize that she's one of the most technically sound batters in the world right now, and not just within the Australian team. And all of this is because of a state coach, Dilip Samaravira, who realized all of this and ensured that he gives a lot lot more batting practice to Annabel Sutherland, and she gets a lot of game time with the bat. And this is where things almost become illogical, because after all of this, you still have to realize that she's just a 24-year-old. If you've stuck till here, from here on out, you will see all of these numbers for what she's done with the bat, and you'd probably lose your mind. In the test format since Annabel Sutherland's debut, she's the highest run scorer for the Australian team. In fact, she's one of 2 Australian players to have an average of more than 50. But that is also being modest with her, because she has an average of 89. Across 10 innings, she scored more than 700 runs. Across these 10 innings, she already has 400s, and one of them being the fastest double hundred scored by a women's cricketer in Test cricket history. And just because she's part of the Australian team, and just because we know them to be dominant, doesn't mean all of her scores have come at a dominant score when she's walked into bat. In fact, more often than not, she's walked in under pressure, converted that pressure into 100. Because if you look at these scores, except for the 137 not out, none of these scores were as dominant as you would expect from the Australian side. In fact, the fastest double hundred came about when she walked into bat at 167 for 4, and even a 129 she walked into bat at 58 for 3. So she can really bat under pressure and also take on the opposition. What's more fascinating is the fact that with every test match she plays, it's almost as if she breaks a record all the time, because she already has the second most test centuries in women's test cricket history. She's also the only batter as of date to score 3 consecutive hundreds in 3 consecutive test matches. But not just that, in the top 18 centurions in women's test cricket history, she's the only player to play in this decade. Not just this decade, but she's the only player to have debuted and played in this decade, which means she's the only player to have debuted after 2020, yet she's already second in this list. But it's in the ODI format where things have really turned around for her, because until one point, they didn't really know where to bat Annabel Sutherland, because they knew she's a talent with the bat, but she would mostly bat at number 7 or number 8 or even sometimes at number 3. But after she became a regular at number 5, things have really turned around for her. Because sure, until she became a regular at number 5, she did average 38. She also had 100 and 250. So nothing to complain about, because across 17 innings, she did score more than 450 runs. But once she became a regular at number 5, across 19 innings, she scored more than 500 runs with an impressive average of 42 with 200s and 250s. And not just that, by pushing her to number 5, her strike rate has improved too, because she does all of this striking at 100. And remember, I talked about batting under pressure in the test format. It's more or less the same even in the ODI format, because every time she scored 40 plus, which is 10 times in her ODI career, you realize a lot of these scores that you see in front of you is again under pressure. In fact, her hundreds have also come under pressure. Albeit the 109 not out was against Ireland, she did this while opening the batting. And then you have the 110 when she walked into bat at 72 for 3. And then you have the 105 not out when she walked into bat at 107 for 3. If you're considering it being a 50 over format, you do know that it's under pressure. But that's what it is with Annabel Sutherland. It's the fact that she can do all of this as a 24-year-old under pressure, but once she's not under pressure, she can really take on the opposition, because if you look at her strike rate, she is able to strike big and finish off the innings big. And something she does really well, and it also shows how powerful she is as a batter, but also technically sound. Until 2025, 42% of all her runs in the ODI format came between long off and long on, which is right behind the bowler. To be able to do that is not easy at all. To give you a little perspective, let's look at the 100 tournament that just got over once again, where she was the highest run scorer. Now, this is a very big deal, because if you look at a T20 average with the bat, she only averages 13. Even though she strikes at more than 140, an average of 13 isn't really impressing anyone. But that being said, the fact that she was the highest run scorer in this tournament says so much about her, and so much about how she's able to grow a game year by year. She scored more than 300 runs across 10 games with a strike rate of more than 150, which is an even better strike rate than a career strike rate. And this is why we come back to her hitting straight, because if you were to compare the top 5 run scorers in this tournament, Annabel Sutherland hit 28% of all the runs between long off and long on, which is the highest amongst the top 5 run scorers. Again, proving the point that she gets a lot of runs behind the bowler, and you really have to be powerful but also technically sound to do so. And this is what it is with this 24-year-old all-rounder that can also bat and score big hundreds, but can can also bowl and contain runs and take a lot of wickets. She is by far one of the best, if not the best 24-year-old you'll see across formats, across men and women playing the game. She's also won back-to-back Belinda Clark Award in 2025 and 2026. The first player to do so since Meg Lanning in 2014 and 15. And we already know how Meg Lanning finished off her career being one of the best players in the world. And that is what you might just expect with Annabel Sutherland, with so many more years to go. Now, of course, she might have a downfall, and of course, she might go through a bad patch of form. But that being said, even if she were to finish off her career tomorrow, she will still be considered one of the best players the game has seen, which is insane when you think about it. Usually our videos like this have a roller coaster of emotions with ups and downs. As of yet, in terms of international career, Annabel Sutherland hasn't seen that. And if you are a fan of the game and if you are an Australian fan, you would hope that it continues to be the same. But this video was just to put her numbers out there, to not just be wary of the fact that the player like this exists if you're an Indian cricket fan, but to also be aware of accolades she's already achieved. If you've enjoyed this video, like, share and subscribe, all that good stuff. All of our links are in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.